going through a divorce is equivalent to grieving the death of a loved one.
And I was not ready for it.
People don't understand how serious that is.
I really thought I could control the journey of healing. Little did I know that it'll take me years.
Grief isn't something light. It's a process, but it can be quite painful.
I have just opened Pandora's box.
But healing from divorce only opened the door to healing from all these childhood things that I had no idea of.
I used to break out in hives. Yes.
I thought healing from divorce would be the easy part.
Because once you go into justification, you're betraying yourself.
Welcome to the LYF podcast. I am Lydia, the founder of Love Yourself Financially, which is a wealth coaching business for women. And I thought it was time for me to do a podcast because there are so many wonderful conversations I have with friends, with clients, where we talk earnestly and we share our own experiences and the learnings we've had over the years, looking at life holistically, not just in terms of your finances, because that's just one small element of our lives. So the LYF podcast is here for you to learn from us, have conversation with us, and maybe it'll inspire you to have the same conversations with your friends and family. Welcome to the first episode of the LYF podcast. This is a topic that is important to me for many reasons, and as we delve into our conversation, you'll understand why. Today I have a guest, my very good friend, one of my first friends when I moved to Abu Dhabi, Dr. Ayat Mekki. Welcome, Dr. Ayat.
Hi, Lydia. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you.
I'm really, really happy to be here, and I'm honored to be the first guest on your podcast.
Of course, because you played such an instrumental role in this area in my life. And I thought, why not have you here so we can talk about it, because we both experienced the same thing within a short period of time, and we both had to go through our own healing journey, and we have so many stories to share, and I'm hoping that other people will learn and benefit from our experiences.
Thank you so much. I really hope that today's conversation helps anyone who's listening and who are in a place where they are thinking about it, they are hesitant, they are fearful. They get to see us after the healing, and perhaps it will help them take the much needed step in their life.
So let's rewind. It's February 2020, just before the world shuts down, and you're sharing how you had recently gotten divorced with me, and unbeknownst to me at the time, I would follow suit not long afterwards. Wow. I can't believe it's almost 6 years.
It is almost 6 years. Time just flew, and I feel like I'm a completely different person than that person who had the conversation with you in February 2020.
So, divorce is a taboo topic in many cultures. It often brings about shame, sometimes even condemnation. I know it's a difficult topic to address, but I think it's important for us to talk about our story, especially the healing element, because there's so many people who either have been divorced or thinking about it, they're struggling with the decision, or they're struggling with the after effects of having made that decision. And I think we need to share our stories so we can give them some encouragement, to show them that there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. And sharing what healing looks like. Because I feel like many have different ideas about what healing looks like, and they probably have a lot of questions about how to heal after such a significant life event.
Right. And psychologists actually talk about how going through a divorce is equivalent to grieving the death of a loved one. And I think people don't understand how serious that is, right? I can't imagine. I haven't had to deal with the death of a loved one, like someone really, really close to me. But I know so many people who have, and I've seen how they really, really struggled through that period. So imagine, people treat divorce like it's just something that it just happens. But if it's as serious as psychologists say, then we really need to address it a lot more, because grief isn't something light. Grief is something that really, it's it's a process, but it can be quite painful.
And long. And there are times where grief hits you after years. Like, so you felt sad, you've felt that you've grieved for the person you lost, but then 2 years later, you find yourself with the emotions that are so fresh as if that person just passed away. So divorce is similar because, every couple of years, you find yourself asking, have I made the right decision? Even though you knew that it was the right decision when you made it. But that doesn't make you stop questioning, stop feeling. You've built a life with someone who you thought it was going to be forever. And just the loss of that, the loss of what forever meant, is enough to send someone spiraling.
Do you think that, you were married for quite a while, you're with your ex-husband for quite a while. Do you think that amount of time also impacted the amount of healing required?
Definitely. Because in relationships, if a relationship is more than a year, you need a significant amount of time to release the feelings from that relationship. So imagine it's actually a bond like marriage, which is a sacred bond, and being in a marriage for 13 years, there was a lot for me to release there.
I remember seeing some kind of statistic somewhere that said, however long you were married for, or whatever length the relationship was, you need half that amount of time to heal from it. So imagine 13 years, and how many years together was a bit longer than that. So imagine just half of the number of years you were married. We're talking 6.5 years that you need to heal from that.
Yes. And you heal and you learn something new about yourself every day. And initially also, I feel like something that is not talked about is the fact that you were with someone, it was so familiar, and all of a sudden you're not in a relationship anymore. So there is a struggle. There's a part of you that is so used to being in a relationship, and there's a part of you that is craving the independence and just standing on your own 2 feet and figuring out life as a single person. But then there's this internal need to be with someone because that's what your body is used to now. That's what your mind is used to, your emotions. So it doesn't feel safe being single anymore because you've forgotten how it is to be single.
So how did you first transition into that? I'm newly single. I'm working on healing. I'm dealing with all the emotions related to getting divorced. How was that initial healing journey for you?
I thought I could control it. I really did. I really did. And I remember I walked into my coach's space and I was like, listen, I just have gotten recently divorced, and I would like to release everything from that marriage. How long do you think it is going to take? And I am ready to just work on this. Little did I know that I have just opened Pandora's box. And I was not ready for it. I really thought I could control the journey of healing. Little did I know that it'll take me years. Because I was so used to also being a coach myself and someone in the healing space, I thought, you know what, how hard could this be? I've helped people do this, heal from significant things, not divorce, but heal from significant traumas in their life. And I thought I could control my own journey because I was so aware, right? Wrong.
Honestly, I can kind of say the same. For me, it was COVID time, so I had a lot of time to myself. And I think initially, the first thing that I had a friend send me information on, just randomly send me information on attachment styles. And then as I started learning about attachment styles, that opened the door, and I just kept delving deeper and deeper and learning more about emotional healing, mental healing, spiritual healing, things that maybe to a degree I understood prior to that. So I thought, okay, well, now that I understand this, let me take charge.
Yeah.
Take charge of my healing, but it doesn't work like that.
It
And
doesn't.
there's so many times I thought I could run ahead of the process thinking like, oh, well, I know where I want to be, so let me do what I need to do to get there. No, then I ended up retracting and then going back to where I needed to be at that time and then just taking day by day. There's no rushing this process. I wish it could go faster, but it's only going to go as fast as you allow yourself to surrender to the process. That was hard for me to learn.
Learning to surrender is probably the toughest part, because when you've decided something so major and taken the step, like, it's such a brave and courageous decision, and it is not an easy decision. This decision, personally for me, took me like almost a year to gather the courage to make it. And I've been thinking about it for many years now. Like, every year it will cross my mind, but when I took that decision, it took me 7 months of actively thinking, writing, praying about it. And I thought the healing journey would, not take, like, it shouldn't take long. If I was able to make this decision, that was the hardest part, then healing should be simple. And I remember thinking, like, when COVID hit and lockdown started, I was so grateful that I was like, I was so grateful to be out of that marriage. I was so thankful. And again, under the illusion that, okay, now I have all this time to work on myself, to have sessions, and I was working with someone and working with the tools that I already learned and know. And still, like, I wasn't ready for that journey. Nothing prepared me for the journey of healing.
I mean, when I look back, I remember those, I would say the first 6 months or so, we had a little group, 5 women, 5 of us who were either just gotten divorced, were in the process of getting divorced, or were seriously thinking about getting divorced. And during lockdown, we were able to meet every week, right? And I think something that is, I think a lot of maybe women don't get, or we can say men as well, but is they need to be surrounded by people who are going through it, who have been there and have healed, right? I know at that stage, all of us are on our different stages of healing, but I can remember prior to that group, even I think the year before, I had a meeting, right? It was someone who's now become my friend, but at that time we were just completing the application for whatever she was working on with me. And I don't know where she starts telling me about her divorce. I didn't know her for that long. And prior to that, there was someone who probably 10 years ago, same thing. We just met for the first time, like our first real conversation. I had known her. She starts sharing her divorce process with me and the healing process with me. And I'm amazed at how that information, them being vulnerable and sharing with me, would be so helpful for me long after the fact. So I think it's really important to surround yourself. There are a lot of people who maybe they've gotten divorced, but they're not healed. You need to be really careful who you surround yourself with.
Especially if there's a lot of bitterness and a lot of, like, emotional abuse or different types of abuse in a marriage, then it is like that can really bleed onto others. So having that support system is really important, and surrounding yourself with women or, like, people who want to heal, not those who want to talk about the past and are stuck on why that person was not the right person for them. Because once you go into justification, you're betraying yourself. Whenever we are in any sort of relationship, we have to take ownership for what we allowed in that relationship. And so surrounding yourself with people who care more about the healing than the blaming is so important. And you did mention attachment styles. That was my benchmark for my healing. So every couple of years, I would go back and do that quiz.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Until I reached secure attachment.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Because we're not only working with the relationship we had with that person we were married to, we're working on our childhood traumas and wounds and how we related to our parents.
Boy, that opens a huge can of worms. I thought healing from divorce would be the easy part, right?
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I'd be fine. But healing from divorce only opened the door to healing from all these childhood things that I had no idea of. I mean, yes, I was aware to some extent of the things that I needed healing from. And I had worked on some of those things over the years. But man, I wasn't ready for the amount of healing. So we talked about attachment styles. When I did that quiz, I think I was fearful, avoidant, or what's the one is a combination, right? So I was highly anxious and also slightly avoidant. And I can think of so many situations where that anxiety just took over.
Mm-hmm.
I could think of actually one friend in particular. There are a few instances, and I feel bad for this person who is on the receiving end of my anxiety. And you know, when anxiety happens, it's almost uncontrollable.
It's illogical.
Yeah. And I know I shouldn't be responding this way. And I would literally either freeze or just start freaking out. And I know logically, Lydia, this isn't something you should be anxious about. This isn't something you should be freaking out about. But here I am. It's like there's a complete difference between how I know I should respond. And I say I should respond because normal me would respond in that way. But somehow present me is responding so differently. And so it was a matter of figuring out what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
What needs to be healed? And obviously with conversations, I mean, get yourself a friend that's a coach, right? That does healing, because I called you up a couple of times and I was like, oh my goodness, I won't believe what just happened. What's going on with me? Like, this is not normal me. And so we did a few things. You helped me address things in childhood that led to me responding this way. And maybe it was suppressed for so many years and finally it came to the surface. And I'm grateful that it came to the surface because it probably would have come up at some point later if I had not addressed it at that time. So to my friend who had to be on the receiving end, maybe several friends, but I can specifically think of one friend who I'm like, think about like a cringe, right? It's just, I can't believe I responded that way. I can't believe I was so anxious, but it is what it is. And I'm grateful to have friends who were understanding, right? Despite the fact that I was acting a bit unhinged. That's the only way I can describe it, because even if I look back, I'm like, well, thank God for healing. Thank God that we're no longer in that stage. And now we're able to share our story in a way that can help others.
Yeah, in a more empowering way. And what you described, like the inner child healing part of it, that was the toughest part for me, because I didn't even realize what I was working with. I didn't realize that I had all these beliefs and perspectives, because that's what it's about, right? Like, it's those perspectives that you have collected from a very young age about incidents that happened. A 5-year-old interpreting a situation as abandonment, which then translates into not being able to be safe in relationships. You choose emotionally unavailable people because you felt abandoned as a 5-year-old. And that perspective, although very real for the person working on their healing, is not the absolute truth. It is not a fact. There are many other perspectives, and that's what healing does, is you go back, you look at the incident and realize there is so much more to it with your now adult aware brain.
Yes.
And then you're able to just learn, complete that lesson and integrate it. Inner child healing is one of the difficult parts of this healing journey, especially like for me in my experience, because I was so distant from my own inner child. I actually had lots of gaps in my memory. There are a lot of things that I couldn't recall or remember. Even when my siblings talked about things, like it's like I blocked anything that had to do with the past or with something painful. So when I started integrating inner child healing in my own healing, I used to break out in hives. Yes.
I didn't know that.
And that was my indication that it's something related to childhood. I would break out in hives. I would start having a really angry rash all over my chest that would stay for as long as I'm working on that wound. The moment that lesson is completed, the rash disappears. It's like magic. I don't think I've shared this before, but yeah, it is. And that's also the physical connection to the emotions. And that's why it is so important to have emotional hygiene, because it truly affects your body in more ways than you think.
So, you are a healing coach, and I have the pleasure of sharing you with people today, right? Sharing your wisdom. You've helped me in so many ways. We've had so many conversations, just sometimes informally, but I've also signed up to a couple of your programs in the past. And what would you say to someone who is struggling right now and they've gone through a divorce or maybe some other experience, and they know internally there's a struggle? Maybe they're battling thoughts, they're battling erratic emotions. What advice can you give that person to at least be courageous enough to really address whatever issues are lying beneath the surface?
That's a really good question. If I could go back and tell myself this advice, I'll include myself in that group. I would say accept the phase you're in, because that's the most important. Learning to surrender is something that comes with experience. With the more you heal, the easier it becomes to surrender. But initially, it's accepting the phase and the stage of life you're in, accepting the emotions. You don't have to embrace them initially. Just accept that this is your reality now, because that acceptance is what's going to help you change them. The more there is a war between where you want to be and where you are, the more difficult healing becomes, because you're literally split into two parts: a part that wants to move on and a part that is still angry about the past. And what you've endured and what you've allowed and how that person treated you, or all the situations, you keep flashing back between the past and the present and the future you want. So, and in my experience, when my clients are healing and when I was healing, I would either be in the future or the past. Being in the past will cause sadness and depression, and being in the future or future tripping causes severe anxiety. The key is to embrace and just be in the present, and literally taking it 1 hour at a time, not even 1 day at a time. Initially, especially when it's still fresh, take it 1 hour at a time, because your emotions are going to go up and down in 1 day so much that you just, like, the more you breathe into that moment, the more you accept what's going on, the easier it becomes.
I remember, just as you said, being in the present. I remember in that first year or so, I literally didn't even have the capacity to think about next month. I could only think about that day and what I needed to do for that day. And then the next day I'd wake up and then continue for that day. Even if I tried to think about a week in advance, a week ahead or a month ahead, I couldn't. It would cause me so much stress. And then eventually I think I got into a good rhythm, and then I got back into that habit of thinking ahead. And then that caused more stress. Then I had to take it back, right? And come back to being present, focusing on now. It's always good to plan for the future, yes. But when we're talking about healing, being present is, I think, essential for that healing.
Absolutely. And planning for the future is so important, and living in the future is completely different.
Right. How would you
Because
describe the difference?
planning for the future is you knowing what you want out of life and the things that you want to achieve, and therefore you will put a plan for that, or even like just take steps towards that. But living in the future is you denying the present moment and denying the past. So you're completely ignoring what's going on and what has gone on and transpired, and just focusing on the future. So you'll find yourself being pulled back and jolted, actually. It's not even pulled.
Yes.
You find yourself jolted
Yep.
and in the same patterns that you're trying to heal from every single time. Like they just keep repeating and looping until you decide, that's it. I'm just going to be present, and I'm going to plan, but not live in that future.
Yeah, I can relate to that because, again, being ambitious, being such a go-getter, whatever you want to call it. So I apply that to my healing.
Yeah.
So there are times, like you said, it was literally jolted back. No, you think you're healed, or you think you can move past this. You haven't done the work yet.
Yeah.
Who do you think you are? And I had to be a bit humble and accept that, okay, let me just take a step back. Take it easy. Don't judge myself, right? Be compassionate to myself, be gracious to myself, and then just keep it moving. So again, like I said, it's so important to have people around you with whom you can have these conversations, because we've had so many conversations. And something I also had to learn was just to not suppress my emotions. I remember situation happened, and someone said something to me that annoyed me, but I didn't say anything. And the next day I had the worst headache. Literally took maybe 3 Tylenols. The headache was still there, and that doesn't happen to me. So I remember I went for lunch with my friend, and I was telling her, telling her what happened the day before. No, sorry. I told her how I had a really bad headache, and she said, what happened yesterday? And immediately I remember the conversation and how frustrated I was, but I didn't say anything. And as soon as I told her about what happened the day before, the headache left.
Wow.
And so that really taught me, don't suppress your emotions. You can communicate how you feel, and how the connection, again, between your emotions and your physical body. So that was a major lesson for me, because I would have thought that I was someone who was vocal. Maybe I was vocal mentally, but not where it comes to my emotions. So I have learned to be at one with my emotions, to accept my emotions, to communicate my emotions, and that my emotions are a beautiful part of me.
Yeah, this is so beautiful, actually. Thank you for sharing that story, because I can relate so much to what you're saying. I come from a medical background, so I always followed logic, and there was no space for emotions, especially when you're an ambitious person. You kind of like just suppress those emotions to keep going, to keep moving ahead. And that, like, the journey of healing taught me to embrace my emotions. And one thing that, like, sharing with friends is so powerful. What you said reminded me of how also we would have these conversations where we would notice the positive changes in each other before we personally noticed it. So I wouldn't necessarily see how far I've come, but when we get together, you mirror that to me and you actually say it to me. You'll be like, Ayat, like, I noticed like this about you, and I'll say the same to you. And so that's why it's so important to have a support system, like people you can talk to about your experience, who can relate, who can understand. even if you don't have people who can relate to your experience, just having friends who are willing to listen.
Yeah.
That just creates so much safety. And that's why I feel like, especially as women, it's just so important to have sisterhood, like true sisterhood, to have women who cheer for you, who accept you, who will call you out
Hmm.
on like, who will call you out like when you're betraying yourself.
When you're acting a
When you're
fool.
acting a fool, exactly. I wanted to find a nicer way to say it, but like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is something that, I mean, I would say all of my life, I've had good friends, right? And sometimes now when I look back, there maybe were a couple of friends who were slightly judgmental. We forgive them.
Mm.
But I do remember initially, people make comments. I remember um, maybe like a month after actually finalizing everything, I went for my friend's wedding in Ghana. And I remember so many people like, why are you going? Didn't you just get divorced? I'm like, what does that have to do with like, can I not celebrate my
Mm-hmm.
friends getting married and their love? Right. And I remember so many people making such comments. I'm like, are you guys okay? I'm okay. And I was so happy. I'm so glad I went. And yeah, it's so interesting how people somehow project whatever insecurities in subtle ways, just subtle comments, right? They project their insecurities regarding whether it's their own relationship or just their perception of divorce on you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have that group of friends, or even if it's just a couple of people with whom you can share, then that could probably throw you way off.
Definitely. And what you said brings a very important point to my mind, and that is, if divorce makes you bitter, then you probably you're doing it wrong. You need to go back and heal, because if anything, divorce made me respect the institution of marriage even much more. And I think it's one of the most beautiful experiences any human can have. Like, marriage is a beautiful thing, and my divorce made me respect that institution more, appreciate it more, and look at it in a positive regard. My experience doesn't mean marriage is it doesn't make marriage flawed, but as humans we are flawed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You said that so well, because I've had people ask me the same. And I say, there's nothing wrong with marriage. Marriage is wonderful. Just because mine didn't work out doesn't mean that marriage in and of itself is problematic. You know, like you said, two flawed humans who came together, didn't work out. They went their separate ways, but we're still hopeful, right? Whatever happens in the future will happen. And at least for now, I'm enjoying my time. I'm enjoying this journey. I'm enjoying this phase of my life, right? When we talk about being present, it's now a way of life for me. You know, I'm not, yes, there are things I want to do. Of course, I have goals, I have aspirations that I'm still working towards, but I have never been in a place where I don't even think I knew it was possible to enjoy such present living.
Yeah.
And it's made me a lot more content, fulfilled. I have so much gratitude all the time. I have so much joy, right? You can't take my joy from me, because things don't annoy me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember one colleague of mine, something annoying happened. And the way I responded, I was like, oh, I'm so annoyed. And he's like, Lydia, if this is you as you're annoyed, then I want to be like you. Because I said it in such a calm way, like, this is so whatever. But then I said what I had to say, and then I moved on from it. Because again, at the foundation, I'm going to be joyful all the time.
Yes, absolutely. And I can like attest to that. You are joyful all the time, and you are living your best life for sure. And you're such a peaceful person to be around. And that's one of the things I love about you. I'll go on a little Lydia like, those are not compliments. Like, those are what you truly are, especially for me. You're someone who I can talk to about pretty much anything. You are someone who always listens. You're someone who's always like, you exude warmth and just like calm energy. So just talking to you feels so calming. And you, like, I've never seen you lose it, like, in any situation. And it is not because you're suppressing. It is because you truly don't let things get to you because of all the healing that you've done and how far you've come. And I find myself, like, in my own journey, sometimes I get so overwhelmed with gratitude. I get so emotional. Just the fact that I am able to have this life that I'm living, enjoy it. I get to enjoy it. I get to feel inner peace. I was having a conversation with someone a couple of days ago with one of my clients, and she asked me, what are your values? What's your top value right now? And I told her, right now, like, my number one value is contentment and inner peace. And to me, they're both in the same, like, they're one and the same. And I told her, when I was struggling in my marriage, when I was feeling so down, my highest value, like, was happiness, because I didn't have it. And I told her, like, then after the divorce, it changed. My top value was freedom.
Yeah.
Because I now had it, but I didn't know what that felt like. I didn't know how to integrate freedom. It was still very new to me. And now, after years of healing, I would say that inner peace and contentment, which I know how they feel, those are part of my life, but they will remain my top value. I don't know if that'll ever change, because just having peacefulness, not having any negative emotions about situations that happened in the past that shaped your life, shaped who you are, is a huge blessing.
You said so much there. And just thinking back on both of our journeys and just thinking about how far you've come, right? How far I've come, how far we've come together, because we've been in this together. I think everything you said reflects what I've observed in you. I know you talked about thank you for saying such wonderful things about me, but I think that's one of the beauties of our friendship, is that, like you said, we mirror each other. So we've both grown and evolved together, right? So we've been able to support each other through difficult periods. We've been able to support each other through such difficult periods. We've been able to kind of coach each other and encourage each other at different points. And I'm so grateful that we have this experience to share together, which normally would be viewed very negatively. But I think in our case, that it's been a blessing.
Impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah, very impactful.
Because, they say there's always a silver lining. And I think that not only did we see the silver lining, we went looking for it, in a sense, because that's what healing is. It's, yes, you've gone through something that's really challenging, gone through something that is probably even, could be even traumatic in some ways. But the silver lining is always there. You have to look for it. And if you do look for it and you find it, then the silver will become the main aspect of your whole experience.
And that's the whole point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And also, I have to say this because you reminded me, because just being your friend and also being someone who participated in your programs, someone who you've coached, the financial aspect of it, the way you guide, or you guided me, especially when it came to finances, like, those were really, like, that played a huge role in, like, the freedom I have now. because financial freedom is like when you don't have that stress of where is the money coming in, when is the money coming in, where is it going to come from. When you're building a solid foundation and you don't have to worry about that, it makes healing so much easier. And as a friend and as a wealth advisor, as a coach, you've helped me immensely.
I love our friendship.
Yes, me too. Me too. I'm so
Go
grateful
us.
for it. I am so grateful for it.
Thank you.
And the referrals over the years,
Yeah.
like from both of us to work, like with each other, I'm so grateful. So grateful to have, our friendship.
Well, it sounds like we'll have to do something specifically for finance, healing, divorce. Maybe we'll have to talk about that.
Yes.
Because I know you have your different coaching programs related to healing, and I have done a training specifically on financially preparing for divorce, but there could be a deeper level of,
I think so.
there's something. We'll
I'm
have to have a
Yeah.
conversation on the side and
Yes.
come back and share that with the world. So if you were to share one word of encouragement, either to, it's going to be broad, to the person who's never been in a relationship, to the person who is considering marriage, but they're kind of, something's like, they're not quite sure, to the person who's in a marriage and is struggling, to the person who's gotten divorced and is struggling, what word of encouragement would you have?
Oh, okay. I feel like this is a huge responsibility, but I'll do my best to answer this question based on my experience and also the experience of my clients and the people I've observed. Number one, trust that God has got you. Like, just trust. Initially, whether you're thinking about getting into a relationship, a marriage, or getting a divorce, trust that God has got you. Even because at that point, maybe you're hesitant, maybe you don't know what step to take. You're not able to trust yourself, but you can only trust yourself to the level that you trust God. The second thing is know yourself. Your relationship with yourself is what sets the tone for all the relationships in your life. If your relationship with yourself is one of avoidance, suppression, ignoring the red flags, then this means that there are deeper issues there. Heal from that, or even just begin healing from that, so that you get to know who you truly are. Because healing isn't really changing who you are. Healing is returning to the true self. The true self that is not burdened by wounds and by relational beliefs that you've accumulated over the years. So those would be the two things. Trust God and know yourself.
If I were to add to that, I would say heal, because as you heal, you won't be less likely to enter into a relationship with someone that will make your life more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be more likely to enter into a relationship with someone who is also healing, because you'll be so much more aware of what to look out for because you've done the work yourself. As you heal, you'll realize, you know what? I've done the best I can. I'm not the one who is going to save this relationship, whether you're in a relationship and not married or you're married. And as you heal, you learn to surrender and accept that you can't force the other person to do anything. You can do your part. And as you heal, you realize that you can live your best life no matter what your relationship status is. And as you heal, all of your relationships will improve. It's not, we are so hyper focused on marriage, and there's a lot of emphasis. I blame Hollywood on being in a relationship, whether boyfriend, girlfriend, or married, but there's so much joy that comes from just having beautiful friendships, whether with women or opposite gender, it doesn't matter, right? So as you heal, all of your relationships will improve. And most importantly, just like you said, your relationship with yourself will improve. And as a result, there's a domino effect,
Mm-hmm.
right? I say with my coaching, to love yourself financially, you must first love yourself. And as you love yourself, you'll see the domino effect in all areas of your life. The way you take care of your health, your finances, the way you show up in your relationships, the way you show up at your job, the way you show up in every area of your life.
That's beautifully said. Beautiful said. And I agree with everything you said. And I didn't know that I needed to heal. And that's where sometimes that's a bit tricky, because if we don't have the awareness, I honestly thought my marriage was normal. I really did. So I'm speaking to those who don't know whether or not their situation is normal. I thought that was normal. I thought everything that happened was normal. I thought I had to endure, because that's what I heard growing up, is that, oh, you'll have problems. It's normal. It's a normal part. But no, like, I wasn't educated on what that looked like. And there was a lot of codependency and enmeshment and a lot of trauma bonding. And I wasn't aware that I needed to heal until I was. And that's why, like, a big part of it for me when I talk to people is finding out whether or not they're aware that something needs to change. When I was answering the question, I was thinking about, like, if I were to go back and give myself advice, the one thing that definitely helped me was trusting God, because I was so confused. I was so confused. And knowing myself, that helped me. And then healing started. Knowing everybody, each one of us has solid things that they know about themselves. Like, I know I'm not crazy, for example. Like, I'm not imagining things. I know what I said.
Mm-hmm.
I recall how this incident happened. But so those are things that you can hold on to when you're healing, when you're starting your healing journey, or when you're about to decide about someone. Because deciding about your partner, this is the most important decision you'll ever make in your life. The partner you choose. So being aware of who you are as a person can save you.
Boy. And like you said, it all starts with that inner child healing, because I think your inner child is with you forever, right? And you need to have a conversation with her, or him for the men. You need to go back and address anything that may have injured her, so that you can really enjoy freedom, right? There's so much we could even delve into on that topic specifically. But there are a lot of people walking around in this world. And this is why I think I'm a lot more gracious these days, is realizing that there's a lot of people who are wounded in one way or another. Doesn't mean I justify their behavior towards me, but I can be more gracious and understand that, oh, maybe they're not aware that they need to heal. Because from awareness, that's where you can transform. But if you're not even aware, how are you going to change? Same for me. I can totally relate to what you said. And being someone, again, because being super ambitious and focusing and knowing that self-development is a part of growth. But I was maybe not focusing on the right areas because I wasn't aware of the areas in which I needed to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Focusing on personal development, focusing on career development
Mindset.
is great. Yeah, it's great. But that's only at the surface.
Mm-hmm.
you really need to deal with the root issues. And that always ties back to, it could even be childhood, but you may not even know. Maybe your parents dealt with it. Maybe your grandparents dealt with it. It could go so far back that you're unaware. So the cycle just continued because other people were unaware that they had to deal with it. So once you become aware, then I think it's almost like your responsibility to deal with it, to ensure that other people around you will benefit, but if you have children, future generations
They don't
will
have to go
benefit as
through
well.
it.
They won't have to go through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
a good way for us to end this episode.
I agree.
So thank you, Ayat, for being my first guest on the LYF podcast.
Oh, I am so happy to be the first guest. And I just, like, this conversation, it also healed me.
Mhm.
Like, this was such a healing conversation. I don't think we've ever sat and talked about, like our experience in such a holistic way. And
the first time we're doing it with the world.
With the world, exactly. So this is raw and real, like
Yeah.
all of it. So thank you for having me. I'm honored to be the first guest on your podcast. And I am so grateful for having you in my life.
Me too. Me too. What a conversation. I told you Ayat is one of my good friends and I enjoy all the conversations we have. So you got to witness a bit of that today. If you enjoy the conversation, share. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll see you on the next episode of the LYF podcast.